All right. So the first thing that we're going to do for installing Node on Windows is setting up the Windows subsystem Linux, which allows you to run a Linux OS directly in Windows. And so to do that, you'll open up click the Windows button, and then you're going to want to open the command prompt. And that should open up one of these terminal windows for you. And once you have that open, you're going to type exactly WSL space -- install and hit enter. Okay, you need to be an admin to do this. So close this and then type command prompt again, and then do run as administrator. And then it'll ask you for permission to do that. So now that you're running as administrator, do this. And then you should get this prompt here that it's installing the virtual machine. All right, so that's done. And then now we need to restart our computer. So you can just close the command prompt, and then I'll restart and be back here in just a second. Okay, so after a restart, there should have been a window that popped up that was like the command prompt for a second, and it said it was finishing a WSL install, and then that should have closed and then opened up this Ubuntu terminal. So you can see it's just another black screen terminal thing, but it says Ubuntu at the top left, and it's finishing installing that OS. And Ubuntu is just a very popular Linux distribution. So there's like a ton of different flavors of Linux. But yeah, Ubuntu is the most popular. So let that finish installing and then we'll resume from there. All right, so all right, so now it finished installing. It's asking for username and password. So I would just recommend whatever your username and password is for your Windows laptop. And note, whenever you're typing passwords in the terminal, you can't really tell that you're typing. It doesn't show like the dots or anything like that. So you just kind of have to do it blind. Okay, so it looks like that's all done. So that's installed now, or Ubuntu is installed. So now we can actually install Node. But as we talked before, there's a bunch of different versions of Node. And so they're coming out with new versions all the time. And so you typically don't want to just install a version of Node. There's something called Node Version Manager, which makes it easy for you to install multiple versions of Node. So we're going to install Node Version Manager first. And so to do that, you just look it up and then you just paste the commands for doing it. But the first thing you want to do is make sure you have curl installed. Make this bigger. What just happened? Oh, God. Yeah, I don't know how to make it bigger. So I know it's small, but do what you can. So I'm actually running this command with something called sudo, which means super user do. So it's asking for my password. And if you mistype your password, just hold backspace for a long time. All right. And then I'm going to paste this command in. So here's this command it's using curl to download this download script for NVM, and then it's passing it to bash, which is the terminal basically. Okay, and then once you do that, you then install a few things, and we have to like refresh the terminal. And so you can sort of do that with this. So this is source, and then tilde, which means home directory / and then the dot in front of the file means it's a hidden file. And so we're like reloading our bash RC here, which I know doesn't make any sense to you quite yet. But so that NVM should be installed now. So we, ooh. I expected that to return something. Oh, I guess is which not a program on Ubuntu? All right, so which, and then a program name is supposed to tell you where it's installed, but it didn't return anything. I don't know why, but it is installed because when I ran npm install 16, which says Node version manager install version 16 of Node, it did that. So downloading, installing, and just 16 by itself is not very specific. So it actually downloaded like a specific, like 16.15.0. So that should be done, and now we should be able to type node. And so so I type node. Now I'm in node. I'm running JavaScript, and so I can type like 1+1 and evaluate that, and I can just do any sort of JavaScript. I can do any sort of JavaScript here. Yeah. So to get out of node, you hit Control-C and then Control-C again. So now we're back to just the command line. Yeah, so that's all you need to do for this. So you have node now. For Windows, getting it to work well with VS Code, like getting a Linux subsystem to work well with VS Code requires an extension. And so if you open VS Code, which I have open over here, and then go to extensions and then search remote. You want remote, this remote. Let me see what this is. I originally said to do this remote development thing here, but I think we should try this remote WSL. Okay. So I typed remote into extensions and I installed remote WSL. Okay, so I did that, and I now have at the bottom left here, I've got this green window. So I can click that, and then And then I can do this new WSL window. And that you can see is actually downloading and setting some things up. You see that down here. And it's connecting to our Ubuntu subsystem. So yeah, now you can see the bottom left here, it's connected to Ubuntu. And this allows you to, like, if you go to terminal and do new terminal down here, this is actually the Ubuntu terminal. So we can do node again from here, and you can see we're in node like we were from the other terminal that we had. So this is just kind of a terminal built into VS Code that a lot of people use, but it's pretty much the same as this Ubuntu terminal that we had open here. So I'm going to exit from that. Okay, so now I want to try. So I'm going to close VS Code. And so I have GitHub desktop on here. And I use GitHub desktop to clone the OK Coders repo to Windows. And when I did that, I just cloned it to my Windows file system. So one thing to note is, like, now that you have the Linux subsystem, there's actually there's like the Linux file system and then there's the Windows file system. So before you installed the Linux distro, you just had the Windows file system, meaning like the documents and stuff and all your downloads and everything are just on the Windows file system. But you can actually access the Windows file system from the Linux terminal as well. So I have like I downloaded the curriculum repo for OK Coders to my home folder /code/OK Coders /curriculum. So I'm gonna open VS Code from scratch. And then I'm going to, let's see, opened it. So it's already opened this folder, but let's say, yeah, here we go. All right, so if we'd opened it from scratch and it hadn't opened a folder automatically, this is where we'd be. And then we can go to open folder and then go to, so I'm in Zach Mays, and then I can go to code, and then I can go to OK Coders, and then curriculum, and then I select folder. So you don't want to keep clicking. When you're opening a folder, you don't want to like keep clicking into the folder. You want to get to the folder and just hit select folder. Okay. So if you're on Windows right now, if you did new terminal, if you do new terminal now, it's going to use PowerShell, which is like the Windows terminal. We want to use the Ubuntu terminal whenever we're developing. So in order for that to happen, we have this folder open where we want to be writing our code and everything. And so, like, imagine we wanted to make a new node script and then run it. So we would, make a new file, which would be like, test.js. And I could put a comment in here like test script running with node on Windows. then I can comment that out and then put, console world. Save that. So I've made a JS file. I want to run it not in the browser, but in Node. So I think I can click this and then reopen this folder in WSL. I think is what I can do. Okay, so yeah, now we are running Ubuntu. I've got this test.js script. And then if I do new terminal, I'm getting bash. You can see bash here. And so I'm actually running Ubuntu. And you can see the location of this is this folder on my Windows computer. You can see there's actually in the Ubuntu OS, in the Linux OS, there's a folder there called mount and then C, which means the like C drive of Windows. And you can see users, for some reason my name's misspelled, and then code, okay, coders curriculum. And so if I do, I know you don't know these commands quite yet, but I can do ls to list the files and folders in this. And then I can cd to module 3, because I want to get to this test.js file, which is in module 3, day 2. So I'll cd module 3 and then ls again, and then move to day 2 and then ls in there, and you see test.js is in there. And so now I can do node test.js. We get what we expect here, which is our hello world. So for now, I think there's some better ways to potentially do this workflow. But for now, I think this is how you guys should do it. So steps being open VS Code, open a folder where you want to be doing code, and then click this down here and do the reopen folder in WSL, and it'll connect to the terminal and everything for you. So I know that might be a little bit complicated, but it's something that like you'll do with repetition, and hopefully it'll get a little bit easier. All right, thank you.